For this video, I want to quickly go through how I edit photos from import to export to upload when I'm covering a sporting event. It varies depending on who I'm shooting for, but this is a good general overview of how I use Photo Mechanic and Photoshop / Adobe Camera Raw to quickly pick photos and tone them before exporting and sending them. It's something a lot of people ask me about, and I think a lot of newer photographers struggle to get this set up initially, and having a good workflow is really beneficial if you're trying to get images out quickly. So the two main programs I'm going to talk about right now are Photo Mechanic and Photoshop. In Photoshop, one of the first things I'm going to need you guys to do is go change a setting really quickly. If it's not already changed, you'll want to go up to Edit, Preferences, File Handling, and in here, down here by File Compatibility, click this Camera Raw Preferences. Go down to File Handling and change this to be automatically open JPEGs with settings. You could technically do automatically open all supported JPEGs, but I prefer it to have ones with settings so that if I want to open a JPEG straight into Photoshop, I still have that option. The settings part of that automatically open JPEGs with settings will become more evident once I show you in Photo Mechanic. But essentially, if Camera Raw sees that there is some kind of setting on a JPEG file, it will open it into Camera Raw instead of straight into Photoshop. And that's what we want. We want it to go straight into Adobe Camera Raw so that you can tone it with Adobe Camera Raw settings, because you can more easily tone and export quickly than you can through Photoshop. So once you've changed that, obviously I already have it set that way, but once you change that, you can just hit OK, OK, and then you're good with the preferences right now. So starting back with Photo Mechanic, this is where you will import your photos. The first thing that you're going to want to do is open the ingest dialog. I'm on a PC, so I'm going to be using the PC hotkeys, but if you're on Mac, there's always an equivalent. You'll just have to figure it out. Usually it's Command instead of Control, but there are a few exceptions. So to open this ingest dialog, it's Control G, and that will pull up the ingest. One of the first things you're going to want to do on all of your hard drives is go to your hard drives. Pretty much every single hard drive I have on my computer has this folder on it. You want to add a PM ingest ignore, exactly that file name, just an empty folder to every hard drive that you plug into your computer or that you have internally on your computer. Basically what that folder does is it prevents all of your hard drives from showing up here under disks. You don't want to accidentally ingest an entire hard drive into a folder. So having that PM ingest ignore tells Photo Mechanic to ignore that disk when it scans for available disks. Normally, when you plug a camera in, it will pop up right here in this ingest dialog. I'm going to quickly plug a card in just so you can see what it looks like. You might have to hit rescan a couple times. So there we have our disk. I'm not going to actually use this, so I'm just going to go ahead and unmount it right now. That was just to show you what it would look like, but you're going to want to make sure that you select all of your camera SD, XQD, CF cards. When they show up under there, it'll highlight them blue, and that will make sure that you know that they're going to be imported. If you rescan and it detects a new disk, it should automatically select that disk. In order to set this up efficiently, if you're shooting for only yourself, then you only have to worry about this one time. But if you're setting it up for multiple organizations or clients, you will want to set up a snapshot for each of those. And what a snapshot is it's a recording of your current settings in this dialog box that you can then quickly switch between in order to change where the files are being imported to, how they're being renamed, what folder structure they're going into. And that allows you to set up all of your clients and save those as snapshots. And then all you have to do when you know who you're shooting for is switch that to that snapshot in this dialog box. That allows you to quickly change your snapshots when you know who you're shooting for. So you just go down to the snapshots and you select who your client is, and then it automatically updates those settings to the way that you'd saved them in the past. So right now I'm just going to work off of this ACSC one as a demo. In order to set up this snapshot, first thing you're going to do is pick a primary destination that you want the photos to be imported to. This is just your base folder for where you want your file structure to be for your imports. So for this ACSC, I have it set up to go into my, my work folder, my freelance folder, my ACSC folder, and then into the RAWs, because this is where I'm going to ingest all the RAW files. And if I was shooting JPEGs, I could put JPEGs, or I could put just an import. I could just put an import for RAWs, but I prefer to say RAW if I'm doing RAW files. So this base folder is the one you're going to want to select for this destination folder routes, because it will be where all of your subsequent folders are saved to. And I'll talk about that in a second. Next, these are your import filter settings. If you're shooting on deadline and you're tagging in camera, you'll want to put locked photos only. And what that will do is that will import only the tagged photos in the camera into Photo Mechanic when you import. After the game, you'll want to go back and change this to locked and unlocked photos so that you can then import all of your outtakes to then look through later. I personally leave this to copy RAW and non-RAW files pretty much for every one of my snapshots, because I shoot RAW to one card and JPEG to the other. So depending on who I'm shooting for and whether or not I want the RAWs or the JPEGs, I will be ingesting various different types of files. So I just leave it on RAW and non-RAW. If you're shooting RAW and JPEG to the same card, you might want to pick RAW photos or non-RAW photos, because if you copy RAW and non-RAW photos, it will copy both the RAWs and the JPEGs off of the card. So just set that to what suits your workflow the best. You'll want to check this apply metadata template to photos and use global. Here is your rename ingested photos as. This is how you want your photos renamed when they're imported. This is something that your client may request a very specific sequence, or something that you just come up with and use for all of your imports. This is how I have formatted my imported renamed photos for years, unless specified by a client. So I do my last name, first initial, and then a month, day, year, and then a sequence. These right here are what are called variables. Right over here, there's a list of every single variable if you want to check what they are. But essentially what it does is it looks at the file or a specific field in the metadata, and it pulls the date or the month or the location or whatever the variable is about, and it replaces this variable with that piece of data. So I have it set to do the month, the day, the year, and it will pull that from the image that it's importing. So as long as my camera times are set correctly, this will always be the month, the day, and the year that I shot that photo. The sequence will pull from this sequence right here, and you can reset this value by clicking this box and changing it to whatever you want. I personally use 4 digits. And if that sequence is already set to something, let's say I imported last week and now I want to import and I want to start at 0 for every single shoot, then I simply hit shift and you see that reset sequence variable shows up when I hit shift, and then I click it and it resets it back to the number of digits to 0001, or if it was in 3 digits, it would be 001. And that allows me to quickly reset my sequence. You'll need to do that for every single shoot in order for it to start counting up from 1. Down here, it's really important that you check this unmount source disks after ingest. And what that will do is once you import photos and it finishes importing the photos based on these filters, it will automatically eject the disk from your computer, which means you can just pull it out and put it back in your camera. If you want to erase the disks after you import, I do not recommend using this, but if you want to, you can select that. So over here, now I would highly recommend you pick incremental ingest. This will copy only photos that Photo Mechanic has not copied yet. So if you shoot photos, import at halftime, go shoot more photos, and then import after the game, it will not import the duplicates from the first half. Down here, we have the structure that your folders will be created as when you import. This is another set of variables. And what it does is it creates a folder within this destination folder root that has the year, the month, the day that they were shot. And that's pulled from the camera as well. And you can kind of see that when I was selecting this. You can see all of the days that I've shot already. They're already in there. And that just creates a new folder every single time you ingest. So you don't have to go create a new folder for every single day each time you want to import. It will automatically create a new folder within that root folder. Once you have this set up to your liking for first client, you want to go here, hit this little lightning bolt and hit save. And what this will do is this will create a snapshot of what this looks like. You can see it there, it's created another one. And so anytime I want to use that snapshot, I just click on it and it will reset it back to the way that I had that set up for that client. So if you want to create that for every client that you do shoot for, then you can easily switch back and forth between clients without worrying that you're renaming your photos incorrectly for that client or importing them into an incorrect folder for that client. The next field we're going to talk about is the IPTC template. And what this is a template of the metadata that will be attached to your photo. I highly recommend everybody use this, at least at a minimum of adding, the city, the location, the state, and a couple keywords and, putting your copyright information in, because that will put that metadata on every single photo that you import. So it has those keywords. And if you're looking for something down the road, it's much easier to find. There are a couple ways to update this for each shoot. Sometimes your client will send you one that you can load in. I'd recommend clearing the template before you load that in, because sometimes if you have a box checked that they don't have checked on their XMP file that they sent you, then you could accidentally be adding information to the template that they sent you. So if you click load, then you can just open this up and it will automatically add in the template that they've sent you. Sometimes the dates are incorrect, so I would automatically just change this to capture time, because that will pull the capture time from the camera and the file itself and not the template. But if we clear that, then we can go back to my personal one. The other way to speed up your workflow with the XMP files and the metadata template is to save snapshots just like in the previous one. So if you get all of this set up with the copyright information and the base caption and you use all of your variables, you can then save that here so you can flip back and forth between it. So as you can see for ACSC, I knew that they always played at the same field, so I just have that automatically filled in. But if I'm shooting for myself for personal uses, it might be in a different place. So you can either type in here, and then you can also save this, or you can then have, once you save it, you can then add these cities and then automatically switch back and forth between them. So if I have a new one that I haven't added before, I can add it here. Or I can pull up this little dialog box and then I can add and remove different cities at my leisure. And then you can just add your location, you can add your state. So let's just do something real quick. And then these that I've added here will automatically populate into the variables that I have set up over here with location, city, and state, following what I have right here. And then obviously the year, the day, and the month will be pulled from the camera. The credit will be pulled from my copyright information down here. And the headline will be pulled from right here. So I might write in this box, Stanford defeated North Carolina with a score. So I don't know, 88-75, let's say, just picking random numbers here. And then in my keywords, let's say in here, I'd want to add some keywords for basketball, let's say ACC, maybe it was senior night, just some keywords that are general for the whole shoot, as opposed to specific players, because this will be applied to every image that's imported. You could also add variables in here for the city and the location and the state and anything else you wanted. So just do that at your discretion with whatever you feel is needed in the keywords box. We can close that template and then just make sure that you change that with each shoot, because the snapshot here does not save the metadata template. That is completely separate from the snapshots on the ingest dialog. So you just need to make sure before each shoot you go correct all of this information to the current shoot that you're on. And then just close it and it will apply to everything you import. And like I said, you can use the snapshots in here, which are independent from snapshots over here. So once you get it imported, you've got your disks, you just click on your disk and you hit ingest. And that will import the photos. I'm going to pull up a gallery really quickly to show you what it will look like once the files have imported. Okay, so I have pulled up two folders here. One of them has a shoot where I shot raw images and one of them has a shoot where I shot JPEG. So I'm going to really quickly show you what it looks like when I open a JPEG that does not have settings. And by settings, I mean it just quickly adding a crop line will add settings to the image. So if I go ahead and open that into Photoshop, Control E does that, it opens it straight into Photoshop here. And we don't want that for the workflow that I'm going to be showing here. So if we go onto this same image and we add this crop line, and by crop line, I'm using the crop tool that's over here on the right side of Photo Mechanic. And another note about the crop tool that is useful for me is if you go into the settings here, you can add this shield area outside crop and you can change the opacity. And what that does is it adds a black or darker border so it's more clear where your crop line is. But anyway, if we open this JPEG file up once the crop line is on, it opens it into Adobe Camera Raw. And this is where you can edit it just like it would open the raw file. So that's the difference that I talked about earlier with having a JPEG file with settings and without settings. And you always want to make sure you add a crop line. So regardless of the image, if it's a JPEG file, make sure that you add some kind of crop line to it or it will not open it into Camera Raw. It will open it straight into Photoshop. For me, that's never a problem because I crop 99% of my images. And even if it's an image I don't want to crop, I'll just add a very, very tiny crop and then I can just adjust it once I get into Adobe Camera Raw later. But because as a sports photographer, I crop so many of my images, this workflow is very straightforward and it pretty much causes no issues because I've already cropped every image, so I don't have to just think about cropping every image and make a point of doing it. I just automatically do it. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the raw files really quickly here because some people shoot RAWs and some people shoot JPEGs, myself included, depending on the shoot. And so here I have every image I imported for this shoot. And if I go up here and I go to tagged, these will be all of the images that I tagged in camera while I was shooting the game. So this is what you would get in this dialog box if you had locked photos only selected. You would only import these locked photos or tagged photos. Locked and tagged mean essentially the same thing in this context. But if I import locked and unlocked photos, I would get everything here. And some people like doing this because if they can't tell who a player is, sometimes in the frames before or after they can see the jersey. I personally, if I'm on deadline, import tagged only because I tend to tag a photo around it, around the image if I can't see the player's number, to then go back and it will automatically import with all the tagged photos. So I can look later when I'm trying to caption. Once you've got your tagged photos imported here, you'll go through and you can see that I have various color markers on different photos because I've already edited. This was a shoot I did about a year or two ago, but it's a good example. And so I'm going to hide all the photos that I've already edited as if this was my initial import here from the game that I was going to quickly edit. If I have a lot of photos, sometimes I'll just make the thumbnails a little bit bigger so I don't have to open each image. Or you can open the whole image and flip through and hit the number keys. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those will add various color markers. I also have my preferences set to advance to the next photo if I change the color or a tag on a photo. So you can see if I hit 1 on this photo, it automatically goes to the next photo. And if I go back here, you can see that it's changed the color code. I have it set to do that because it just makes my workflow a little bit faster. You don't have to change that. But if you want to change that, you can go up here to edit preferences and go over to preview, I believe it is, yes. And change these to automatically advance to the next photo when one of these is changed. So I have mine set to tag and color. So that just makes my workflow speed up just a little bit because I don't have to hit tag and then the next arrow key. If I know it's one I want, I tag it or I color code it and it automatically goes to the next photo. So let's say, because I've hidden the codes for 1, I will use 2 here, so they'll be red really quickly. So let's say that I want this photo. I'm just going to pick a couple. I want that photo. I want that photo. And I want that photo. Just a couple really quickly. And so once I've gone through the images that I have imported, I can then again go up here and filter this. If I hit the far right icon, it will remove anything that doesn't have a color code. And so you can see these images are the ones that I just selected. And so I open this back up with the spacebar. I add my crop lines. Onto all my photos, how I want them cropped. And then I go through and I caption. I'm not going to do full captions here, but I just, and once I've done that for all of the photos, I know that they have captions. And if you want to copy and paste a caption, let's say that 2 images are of the same athlete in the same half of the game, you just hit copy, save in advance, paste, save in advance. And so you have that same caption on all of it. So I'm just going to paste this onto all of them real quick, just so it has something different from what it imported as. And then once I've captioned and cropped all of my images, I use Control E again to open it up into Adobe Camera Raw in Photoshop. And this is where I tone the photos. So I have all of my various colors, contrasts, lights, whatever I need to use to tone the image. General settings. You can also crop in here if you realize after the fact that you want to, let's say, crop out that telephone pole or that light pole, right? If you didn't notice that the first time when you were quickly cropping in Photo Mechanic. So you can crop in there. But what I would recommend doing here is if you shoot at a venue often and you know from your experience with the venue and with your camera, then you know that you can, let's say, add a little bit of contrast to all of your images. You know that they're always going to need a little bit of contrast. If you select all of the images with Control A, then you can adjust the settings on all of those images. So let me just do something drastic so you can see the difference. And you can see down there it's updated all of the previews as you change the settings. So you can have your settings that you want. If you know that that's how you like to tone it, you can do it to all the images and then go back through and fine tune each one. Like, oh, the color looks a little bit off on this one, so I need to add a little bit of color, or a little bit of color temperature to it, right? The other option you have if you want to quickly edit them all is you can actually save, similar to with Photo Mechanic, you can save a snapshot. So if you go to the menu here and hit Save Settings, and you can select which settings. Like if I don't want my crop to be saved, I can uncheck that, which I would recommend because each image is going to be cropped a little bit differently. And you hit Save. You can rename this. Let's say Greenwood. Oh, I'm in caps lock. Rename this Greenwood Field. I should say soccer field. And then save it. And then what you can do is go back. I'm just going to change the settings so you can see it change here. You can go back and load settings, and it will apply those settings that you saved. And you can do that to all of the images as well. If you load settings and open that setting, it will apply it to all of the images. The other option, if you have two images that are right next to each other that you're saying, okay, these were shot in similar lighting situations, so they both need the same addition to exposure or contrast or shadows or whatever, you can go onto the image and you can do Control Copy, Control C, and paste it onto another one with Control V. And that just allows you to easily copy and paste the settings from one image to another without having to select them all or go through and manually select by being like, okay, I want this one, holding Control and just clicking the few that you want. You can just do Control Copy, move on, paste, paste, paste onto the few that you know are going to have similar settings. Now, once you have all of your pictures toned, you want to save them out of Adobe Camera Raw. So you highlight them all, either by shift clicking or doing Control A, and then hit Control S, which will open a Save Options box. And here's where you can kind of create snapshots, again, for different clients, depending on how they want their files saved. So up here you have this box, and you can see your user presets are right here. And that's where your saves will appear, your snapshots. So let's say this ACSC client, I can select a folder. If I go to my work, go to freelance, and actually say hot code, export. And so I'll select this export folder, and then I will pick whatever they want. Let's say they want me to limit the file size to, 7 megabytes, just so this file is a little bit smaller, and they want me to resize them to 5,000 pixels down from 8,000 or whatever I originally natively shot them at. And then you can go up here and save this preset as already on a preset that I previously have used. So if you hit save, it will save over that preset, but if you hit save as, you can create a new one, which then you can select here. So you can see that these change my settings depending on which one I have selected. And it just makes your workflow faster if you're shooting for various organizations. You don't have to remember all the settings every time. You can set it up the first time and then you're good. The only difference here from Photo Mechanic is that you cannot automatically save them into a new dated folder in this selected root folder here. So what you'll have to do is every day that you shoot, you'll need to go in here and create a new folder for whatever the shoot you're doing that day. And I just do the date. I already have this folder in here because it's a game I previously shot, so I will just select it. You can always go back into here, let's say you know exactly what day all of the games are going to be for the whole season. You could just add all of these folders at the beginning of the season and then just select the folder you want on that specific day. So once I have that, I have it set, I've got my settings that I want, and I just hit save and I can hit done. There goes that dialog box. That will show you the progress that you have on what's exporting. So if we go back to Photo Mechanic and we quickly go in here and pull up that folder that I just exported to, let me hide all of the photos I've shot in the past. There are the 4 images that I just captioned, cropped, toned, and exported right there. And so you can see that those have all of my settings and crops applied, and they're just exported files, and they're JPEGs, and they have my caption that I added. So these are now ready to be sent to your client. So whether you're uploading images or you're just taking them and dragging them into a Dropbox or a WeTransfer or whatever means that you need to get them to your client, they are now ready to be sent. In essence, that's the workflow right there. With some practice, it can get pretty quick. You can get images out really fast. I know I did it with raw files, but the JPEGs are essentially the same. Let me just really quickly edit this one, do some contrast, save it in, I'm just going to save it into that same folder. And you can see that it shows up here with my other photos that I exported. And basically the JPEG workflow is identical to the raw workflow, except you must add that crop marker or it will open them into Photoshop itself and not Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to delete that since it's not from this game. A lot of us shoot both raw and JPEG depending on who we're shooting for. So having a workflow that doesn't change pretty much between the different file types is very convenient. With some practice, you can get images out really quickly with this method and this workflow. I use it for lots of clients, including Imagine and Associated Press, especially since speed is everything when covering editorial games. Having a workflow that is fast and efficient is very beneficial, so I can get those images out quickly. Often I only have a few minutes between periods or quarters or at halftime to file 15, 20, 30 pictures. And this workflow makes it very easy for me to get those pictures out and still get back onto the court or on the field in time for the start of the next period or half. If you're not used to tagging in camera or you're not sure where that feature is, I would highly recommend you figure it out by using your manual to tell you what keys you need to press and getting in the habit of doing it, because it makes your workflow much faster because you don't have to look through every single image that you've shot in a half or a full game to find the images that you think are the ones you're going to want to send after that event. I always look through all of my photos after the game ends. As you can see here, I have a lot of photos that I don't have tagged, but I might have missed something in camera. So I go back and I say, okay, well, I really like this photo right here. So I didn't tag it in the game, so I'll tag it now and file it as a second edit. For the most part, my primary edits are going to be the ones that I tagged in camera, because over the years I've gotten good at just knowing what pictures are going to be useful for editorial clients. And so I can quickly tag those during timeouts so that I have them at halftime or after the game so I can file those easily. I hope this was helpful and it improves your workflow going forward. Now I'm going to show you a demonstration of this workflow in use at a MLB game that I shot recently. So here you can see I'm importing my photos. And I have a couple cameras, so I import one and then I plug the others in, get everything imported. Then the first thing I do is I go find the picture of the inning. I always take a frame of the scoreboard after the inning, and then I reapply a template with that inning. Once I do that, I start looking through the photos and I pick a handful. For the first inning, I always send the starting pitcher for both teams, and if there was any action, send some action and reaction. Once I've got those selects, I open them up and I crop them. After I've cropped all the pictures, I start to caption. And you can see I'm using code replacements, so I don't have to remember how to spell everybody's name or what position they play. I just have to know which team they are and what their number is. Once I've got those, I open them into Photoshop. For this event, I was shooting JPEGs, so you can see it opens the JPEGs into Adobe Camera Raw. I tone the images how I like them, and then I will export them. Once I've gotten them exported, I flip over to my photo mechanic tab. With the exported photos, I double check that the captions go through. Occasionally, I will accidentally edit a photo that I haven't captioned, and I always double check. And then once I've double checked that, I just upload them through the FTP. I hope that was helpful having a real life demonstration. Thanks for watching.